So I'm going to be recording this, and my name is Barbara Hoskins Sakamoto, and I'm one of the co-authors on Let's Go. And thank you for coming to this short presentation about Let's Go. And I wanted to show you first, this is how Let's Go has looked over the years. We first were published in 1992, and while we've had the same bright red cover on our first book, the content has a lot of things that have stayed the same and a few things that have evolved with the times. And I wanted to go ahead and talk about what might be making Let's Go still a best-selling book after 30 years. We figure we must be doing something right. And all we had to begin with back in, think 1989, 1890, it was our intuition, because there were no other textbooks for children learning English as a foreign language. So we had no model. We were classroom teachers, not academic researchers. So we had no university library. And there wasn't Google. We couldn't look anything up. So what we did have to go on was our experience as teachers and what we thought our students needed. So our intuition told us that we wanted to let students use what they already knew to learn something new. We believed that movement and rhythm supported learning. We thought that an explicit focus on form would help students build accuracy. So, and we also believed that students needed to interact with each other and not just the teacher. Books prior to Let's Go had the teacher asking questions and the students answering questions. And we thought they would learn better if they talked to each other. We also believed that students needed a lot of repetition in order to remember new language, because in most cases in Japan, students only have one 1 hour a week often. So we didn't know, we knew that they'd get most of their practice in our classrooms. So that was our intuition going into Let's Go. And now in our 5th edition, we've added a new level. So we're now an 8-level series, starting out with Let's Begin 1, and now we have Let's Begin 2. So we have 2 levels to help students develop phonemic awareness and language awareness and build an oral language base before we ask them to learn how to read. This is a picture from one of the pages in Let's Begin 1. And you notice the cognitive load is very low. So what is it? It's a ball. And we're going to build from here the same it's a pattern, the it is pattern. I want to show you how we recycle and use it to build new language through the remaining 7 levels of Let's Go. One of our big points is that we want to focus on teaching one new thing at a time. So we want to keep that cognitive level low so students can remember and use the language that they're learning. So here we have a familiar pattern and new vocabulary. We're going to talk about colors. So we think that once children learn language, we want them to see how much they can do with the language they know. Now we have a familiar pattern, but we have new vocabulary again. So now we're going to talk about the weather. So how's the weather? It's sunny. So we have lots of engaging, comprehensible input. We say the conversation, we sing the conversation, and then we also have multisensory, comprehensible output where students are talking to each other. Now, new in the 5th edition, videos. Okay, we have a lot of digital assets that came out just in time for everybody to have to teach from home. So in the Teachers Resource Center, we have scripts for these videos. And the videos repeat the conversation, but they recycle language that students have already learned so that we can show them how to build more extended conversations without having to learn more language. Now, Aya is in the group today, and she's going to be dropping some links in the chat for you. One of them is to our online play site, where you can download all of the videos. You can watch, or you can watch the videos, you can download them, you can listen to all the audio, you can download it. In the Teachers Resource Center, with two different things, we have all the scripts for the conversations. And here you can see everything that would be recycled and everything that's basically new. The yellow highlight is what students learn in the book. The rest of the conversation is language that is recycled. So our videos show students how to build conversations using language they already know. At the end of every video, the characters look at the students and ask a question. In this case, how's the weather? And students answer, interact with our characters. A good model for interacting with each other. We're back in the textbook now. So at level 2, we're going to use that same basic beaver pattern to talk about a new function, telling time. And again, we have students interacting with each other because that's more effective than having students interact only with the teacher. Now we're back to using weather again, so it's familiar vocabulary, but we're going to use it to introduce a new pattern. In this case, past. So how was the weather yesterday? So again, they're only having to learn one new thing, which is a hallmark of Let's Go. And again, 5th edition, we have song videos. So now students can watch the song on the online play, so they can access it on the smartphone, on a tablet, on a computer at home. And they can see the song as well as sing the song. They're also embedded in the classroom presentation tool. So if you're using the digital book online, you can just click on the icon and the video will pop up on your screen. Back in the book again, we have the familiar vocabulary about weather, and now we're going to use it to introduce a new pattern. Now we're going to talk about the future. How's the weather going to be? And we have the same conversation, practice, and a chant. So the students are getting a lot of support for practicing the new language. We're trying to get them to do a lot with the language they already know. Familiar pattern now, talking about the future, but new vocabulary, talking about what they want to be in the future. So you can see how we're building here. If the vocabulary is familiar, we want to use it to introduce new grammar. If the grammar is familiar, we want to use it to introduce new language. And if the language is familiar, we want to use it to introduce new skills like reading and writing. We also heard from teachers that they really wanted to be able to check students' progress, immediately, like right after the lesson. So in the classroom presentation tool, and I think Aya is going to put a link in the chat for a demonstration of the classroom presentation tool, so you can see how it works. It's not necessarily just Let's Go, but it'll show you how the CPT works. But at the end of the lesson, you'll see that there's a little icon next to I can do this lesson. You click on it and you go to an assessment activity. So you can check the student's assessment immediately or check their learning. And you can see if they have it, you can move on to the next activity. If they didn't get it, you can go back and practice some more. This is what the bookshelf looks like. And so there's a code in the teacher's pack that puts both the student book and the workbook, digital versions, on your shelf. So easy access. And now we're in book 6. So this is the top level of Let's Go. Students have a lot of language they've built from that kindergarten level. And we're still using the be verb here, but now we're going to talk about things that were amazing and exciting and how we felt about them. We were amazed or we were excited. And students still need lots and lots of practice. And because we're classroom teachers too, we appreciate having that practice be pretty easy to put together. So in the Teachers Resource Center, which again is a code in the teacher's pack, you can access all kinds of tests to print out, and they're all editable, so you can change them to meet your own needs. You can print out worksheets that are also editable for each unit. You can download the class audio or you can play it. You can download the videos or play them. You have all the scripts. You have student cards you can print out to play games in class and additional professional development resources for you. This is one of the resources. You get additional art. So I often use it to provide extra practice. So I want to give students more things to talk about with the language they just learned. So here we have, the movie was exciting. I was excited. Camping was amazing. So you can have students talk about things that interest them. The last thing in the Resource Center is online practice. Now, in this case, students get a code in their student books to give them access to online practice. Teachers get a code to give them access to the administrative side. So you can see how much time your students are spending with online practice and how well they're doing. The last thing I mentioned about the videos, our online play site. Now, this is a really wonderful new addition because it's all free. Students don't need to have an account. They can access it on a computer, they can access it on a tablet or on a smartphone, and you can play games with the language from the lesson. You can watch the videos, you can download the audio, you can access a picture dictionary, and there's lots of things you can print out. And the nicest thing is that nobody needs an account for it. Okay, so I showed you how the be verb works through 8 levels of Let's Go, but obviously that wouldn't be enough in the way of verbs. We want students to talk about things that interest them, and we want them to be able to initiate communication, and they need verbs for that. So we include a lot of verbs in Let's Go. Sometimes they're included as part of the lesson. Sometimes they are a chance for students to personalize the language and talk about what interests them. Sometimes they're in songs. Sometimes they're in chants. And sometimes they're in our listen and do sections, which are the TPR sections to introduce new verbs. They go along with the unit theme. By the end of book 2, students will have learned nearly 100 verbs. Alphabet in the first level of Let's Begin is an excellent example of how we use what students already know to teach them something new. So here, students usually come to kindergarten knowing the alphabet song, more or less. So they know the names of the letters. So what we do is we break the letters into groups. The very first group we teach are the vowels, because the vowel sounds are the most important. They occur in every word in the English language. So we teach the vowels with gestures, to match the mouth shape that the students make when they make the sounds. Then we go to the families, the sound families. So if you say the sounds C, G, B, D, P, T, V, and Z, you'll see that what they all have in common is the E sound. So if we teach children some subtraction to take B minus E, that takes them to the letter sound B. So it's using what they already know as a shortcut to help them remember what they need to learn. And if we use that approach, we have the E family for F and N and S, and we have the A group for J and K, and that leaves students with 5 letters that they need to just memorize. But it's one way effectively to use what students know to make it easier for them to learn what they need to know in order to learn how to do phonics. When we do start phonics in book 1, students have developed a strong oral foundation because we've built in a lot of scaffolding. We don't have any wasted language. So we've made sure that students have learned the words orally that we want them to learn how to read. So they only have to learn one new thing, which is how to attach the sound to the letter. So we use the words they know, then we teach the context, or we teach the sounds in the context of words. We reinforce the phonics patterns with movement and rhythm. And finally, we use this familiar language to build a new skill. Okay, one new thing. The language is familiar, and so they can focus on learning how to read it. We teach the words in the context of sentences. One new thing in the 5th edition are reading. Okay, more readings. Every unit now has a new reading in the workbook because we want to develop students' abilities to read independently. These readings have no new language, same phonics, but it's a different story. So we want to give students more practice reading so they develop the context or develop the skills in context. Eventually, at level 6 now, we have students who know a lot of language. They've developed reading skills. So we can have them use language to learn new things. They can use English as a tool to be able to learn. And again, in the workbook, there's another reading that is also in new information, but it's using familiar language. So we have review words that are mixed in from previous levels. Students do know these, but just in case they don't remember that they know these, we have vocabulary activities to help with the meaning of the words. And then we've included writing to personalize what students have read and give them more practice building skills with familiar language. So basically, this is our team. We have had the same author team working on Let's Go since 1989. And recently, we lost Ritsuko Nakata, one of our original co-authors, and her loss, leaves a big hole in all of our hearts. But her life was an inspiration for me and a lot of other teachers. And she leaves behind a legacy that is incredible. And we'll do our best to live up to the inspiration and the legacy that she left behind. And as we learn more about how children learn, we're going to continue to improve the way that we teach and the way that we write our textbooks. So the key elements in Let's Go have remained the same. Our intuition was supported by research. So we know now that a focus on form helps students develop accuracy. We know that they need a lot of practice to build fluency. And we know that scaffolding and recycling language is the best way to build communicative skills. We know that multisensory teaching techniques help students remember language. So we know that songs and chants and games are engaging for students, and so they will practice more. We know that students need to learn how to personalize the language, and we know that they learn best if the learning is centered around themselves and their interests and their interest in talking to each other and about themselves. We know that students learn well if we use familiar language in order to learn new language and skills. If we throw a lot of language at students in class, we spend all of our time explaining the language. Students don't get much chance to use it. And we also know that with support, students can develop autonomy. They can develop as independent learners, even if they only meet with the teacher 1 hour a week. So this is actually at the end of what I needed to cover. I haven't looked at the chat, so I'm going to go over and take a look at that. But just in case you're interested in learning more about Let's Go or hearing me again, on November 7th, there's going to be another event, Oxford Day Online 2020, because 2020, everything is online. And there's a link at the top of the slide where you can register. And I know Aya will be putting another link in the chat. So let me go take a look and see if there are any questions for me. No, there's no questions here, but are there any questions before we finish up? I see links from Aya. Thank you very much for putting those in. Does anybody have any questions? You can either unmute yourself to ask, or you can type in the chat. No? Oh, here we go. Thanks for the encouragement. Okay, well, I guess you might end up, oh, let's see. 日本語でも Yeah, I feel like I'm one of the only people who is presenting in English today. So thank you for being patient with listening to me